Well, hello, greetings, and welcome to you. Happy holidays. And welcome to Satsang. So before we get into it, I just have three quick announcements. We have our next in-person retreat, January 15th through the 18th in Washington State. And if you're interested in joining, there's just a couple spots left, so please email me directly. Secondly, we will be at the Shivananda Ashram in the Bahamas, March 29th through April 2nd, 2026. And we are having a community Sangha meeting. This is to speak about all the groups that we have going on, the student-led groups, and just the growth of the Sangha going forward. And so that will be this Friday, I believe the 19th at noon Mountain Time. And I'll post that on Facebook. Okay. So as we come near the end of 2025, I look at this time of the winter solstice and the coming of the new year as a beautiful time to reflect upon all that has happened in this last year. And as human beings, we tend to just have an egocentric worldview. We look out at life from the perspective of our ego. And so everything is interpreted through the lens of our ego. I was just at Mass with my friend, Father John, and he shared with us that he has two friends in Nigeria, two brother priests, and one of them had been abducted. And he was being ransomed, and so the second priest, who was not abducted, arranged, for the ransom money. It was a lot of money. And he went and he took it to the kidnappers. And as he did so, the kidnappers decided to take the money and him as well. And so now they have two priests that have been abducted. And then, of course, in Nigeria, I don't know if anyone here is following it, but there's been tremendous violence against Christians in Nigeria. This is a horrific thing that anyone would look at and say, oh my God, this is an absolute horror. And here, my good friend Father John is looking at this, not through the lens of the ego, but he's looking at this and he's saying, this is God's plan. And anyone, if this was your brother and he was, abducted and someone said this is God's plan, you'd want to strangle this one. But when we live in a higher consciousness, when we live in a state that is beyond ego, we stop looking at life through the lens of ego. We look at life through this lens of truth, this lens of growth, this lens of forgiveness, a lens of compassion. And this teaching, many could look at this teaching and say, this is absolutely absurd. And yes, there's many things in the mind of God that are absolutely absurd according to our egoic identity and our egoic reality. As someone who, has this vocation where I sit and I listen to people's stories. I've heard so many stories of tragedy, year after year after year. After a while, this will take a toll on you, to be listening to so many stories of tragedy. But when we listen from the mind of God, when we listen from this vast view, we don't look at life according to what I want and my desires. We look at life from the perspective of growth. And this is a radically different orientation, a radically different worldview. It's quite a challenging worldview for the ego. The ego wakes up every morning and says, I want my day to go like this. I want to be happy and blessed. And I think we had a Powerball lottery last night. It was for like $1 billion or something. I don't know if anybody won or not. I got a ticket. I'll let you know. But, this is how the ego thinks. It says, oh, I want to win $1 billion. And if I had $1 billion, I would do this, this, and this with it. And sometimes the ego has beautiful intentions. Sometimes our ego has quite wonderful intentions. But the bottom line is God is in charge of reality. God is in charge of the coming and goings of life. And the more we grow and the more we mature on the path, we see that God's way is quite incredible, quite remarkable. The human way is quite predictable. I want to be rich and famous. For some of us, we would rather be rich and anonymous. Just rich and have nobody bother us. And with the holidays here, you see all the new gadgets and all these different things we can buy. We become so materialistic as human beings. It's so predictable. I want more and I want bigger. I want new. And God in heaven will sometimes look at us and say, I'm going to give this one a big dose of hell and see if I can awaken their strength, their immense compassion, but to see if I can invoke a greater level of sanity within these individuals, a greater level of forgiveness. And if you could imagine, being a priest in Nigeria and being kidnapped and being stuck all day with these, well, I'm sure, the consciousness of the kidnappers is not very high. I'm trying to think of the right word, to call them. I wanted to call them animals, but I don't know if this is the quite right thing. They're just deeply confused souls. I've seen videos online of children being kidnapped, being snatched up off the streets, and eventually they're sold into slavery. And it's like, what kind of individual does that? Someone who is deeply hurting, deeply lost. Deeply lost. And if we think about Jesus, who was thrown to this most chaotic situation with an angry mob wanting his death, and Pontius Pilate just not really knowing what to do with him, and him being nailed to the cross. And I imagine there's a lot of people who are making fun of him and who are jeering him. But when they saw his face and they saw his suffering, I imagine that a number of people in that crowd woke up and realized, this is not the way. This is not the way to live. And sometimes God will use us as spiritual beings, will put us in a life with very difficult people, very difficult circumstances. A really confused mother or father, or sister or brother, or neighbor or coach, or whoever it is. You know, some of us have married in to people who are quite difficult, quite confused. And we can look at God and say, this is a mistake. This is not fair. I don't like this. And that's how the egoic mind operates. I like what feels good and I don't like what feels bad. But there are many times when God asks us to carry a cross, and to do so as an act of enormous compassion. Enormous compassion. Now, I had a friend when I was young, and he was a bully, and he picked on me every day. Every day he picked on me. He'd make fun of me, and he'd get like 50 or 60 kids at school to point and jeer and make fun of me because of the way I looked or the clothing that I wore, or because, I had pimples on my face or whatever it was. And it took this friend, about 6 years. About 6 years. To wake up just to the fact that he had been a real jerk to me. Took him another 6 years to apologize to me. But I can say with a smile, we're good friends now. We're good friends. And sometimes, when I first met him, I'd look up at God and be like, why is this person in my life? And that's how the ego looks. It's like, why are they in my life? This is not fair. This is not right. This is not just. I don't like this. I don't want to be a part of this. We've all had this experience. But sometimes the question is wrong. Sometimes the question is, why am I in this person's life? And just like my friend Father John, who has 2 friends who've been abducted, kidnapped now, and who knows what will happen to them? Who knows? I mean, God knows, and God has this plan. And the plan is for 2 priests to be in the captivity of these very angry and confused. I like to call them Muslims, but Muslims is the wrong word. Maybe terrorist is the right word, but again, it's like, I don't want to get into name calling. But sometimes when you are a bright light, you'll be thrown into a situation where you are meant to continue to be the light. Continue to show up as love, as kindness, as forgiveness. While you're facing darkness. This journey of being awake is a journey where we choose to live from this higher perspective. despite how we feel, despite what is coming at us. And in one sense, like in an egoic or a human sense, it's a ridiculous ask, for God to take you into states of hell. And for us to say, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. Forgive them, Lord, they're confused. In one sense, this is how Gandhi defeated the British Empire. He showed up in a state of innocence, of childlike humility. And he showed the British imperialist the truth. He showed them the truth while they beat him, or they beat his people. Martin Luther King did the same thing. He showed up with love, with compassion, and said, if they respond with violence, let us respond with love and forgiveness. And this is a tough teaching. But it's important for us to realize, what does it mean to be awake? Many of us on the spiritual path think that it means that we feel good all the time and we no longer suffer. And I think this might be one of the dumbest definitions of enlightenment, the end of suffering. It may be the end of some form of psychological suffering. It may be that as an aspect of that. But most enlightened beings suffer greatly. They suffer greatly because they show up and they are always being the higher one. They're choosing the higher path, the noble path. And this is a world with insane rulers, insane governments, where the richest and most famous people tend to be the most narcissistic. And in the light of this, we are asked to respond with love, with mercy. Doesn't mean we roll over and play dead. There's many times when God asked any great being to stand up, to speak up. And often the truth takes many, many years, many years to be realized. Just like my friend, my good friend who was a bully. I should say that differently. My terrible, rotten, no good friend who bullied me throughout so much of my childhood. It took him about 12 years to really wake up and see. I think he woke up, maybe after 4 or 5 years. But it took him another 6 years to change his behavior, to actually have legitimate remorse and to outwardly apologize. And many of us, we know this journey. We know this journey of being on the path and knowing a truth that all is God. But in the realness of your human life, it can take us decades to know that all is God. in the cells of our being. You know, a lot of people know that all is God as some type of philosophical truth, but they certainly haven't realized this in the heart yet. they haven't realized it in the heart. And as we near Christmas, you know, one of the beautiful things about Christmas, it's like I was saying in the beginning, it's like we're getting near the end of the year. The days are short. And I've had all these things just pop up in my social media, you know, where it's like, Craig, here's your year in review. And whether it's from YouTube or Facebook or whatever it is, it's like, here's your year in review. It's just like showing me what I posted. But we want to go deeper than that. We don't just want to look at, well, what's been one sliver of my consciousness that's been shared online. As we reflect on this year, I invite you all to ask yourself, well, how has it gone? What did you learn? What are you continuing to learn? What has God been trying to teach me this last year? What has God been trying to teach me? What is God showing me? What is it that continues to present itself in your field, in your experience? What keeps showing up? What patterns of behavior are you seeing? And so during this time of year, it's a beautiful thing because we can reflect deeply. We can have some remorse. We can say, oh, I should probably try to shift this and do a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. I could be more compassionate and slow down. I could be kinder and gentler to myself. Perhaps I could have greater faith. But as we are reflecting, you know, during this most beautiful time of year, you know, if you show up in church or you turn on the TV and you see, you know, any Christmas movie, and the majority of Christmas movies, you know, invite us to reconnect to a depth of innocence. A depth of innocence. And so before I get to the questions, I'm going to invite us to shut down our eyes if you haven't already. And we can reflect a little bit on how 2025 has been for us. And if we want to make any changes in this and that. But what I would like us to do is to journey right into the center of your heart. And to invoke the realization of your innocence, this depth of purity. So if you're in your head, you probably won't feel this. I want to invite you to join me right in the center of the heart. And not on the surface. I want you to journey inward toward the spine. And to experience this tenderness. And as we open the door of our hearts, I want you to see if you can join me in experiencing just this sweet sense of joy. Earlier this morning, I was listening online with one of my teachers, and he was singing, "Joy to the world. Joy to the world." For the Christ is here. It's the very innocence, the tenderness of your own heart. And sometimes as we look back at the last year, the last couple years, we can say, my, oh my, has it been hard? Has it been difficult? Has it been confusing? Has it been a struggle? And it's okay to laugh and it's okay to cry a little bit. And often our ego, our humanity gets beat up. Often our humanity gets beat up by life. And the invitation through reconnecting to our innocence is this recognition that there is something here. Something here. That has not been harmed. A light here that has not been extinguished. There's a purity, a brilliance about your nature. And so I invite you to breathe, to feel, to open. And despite all the hell, the difficulty, the confusion, despite all the hopes and dreams and desires that have been unmet in this lifetime, sometimes we're just living in the future, if that's you. And I invite you just to put it all down and to join me in the joyous radiance of the heart. This Christ-like nature. That is the very fabric of our being. And so we are breathing, we are feeling. And we are opening with love and to love. And we are doing this as love. With love, to love, as love. And recognizing that despite every chaotic experience, despite having no good, rotten people in your life, despite all kinds of failure at work, or school, or our vocation, with friends, with family, and life, there's a supreme radiance here. A blazing light of innocence and purity, which smiles at creation. And you can notice if you have a bah humbug in you, if you have a grumpy old man, a grumpy old lady in you, if you have a doubting one, an addicted one, a confused one, a misaligned one, a distracted one, a jealous one, an envious one, an angry one, a sad and hurting one, let us extend this love. Let us extend this love to the parts of ourselves that sometimes kidnap us, that derail us, that take us on the wrong path. Let us extend love to the kidnappers and to the parts that have been abducted. And let us choose to fearlessly embrace all the parts that have been twisted or misaligned within us, And just looking at them with a smile, saying, I see you and I love you. And I'd like to show you another way, another way, another way. And so yes, we're breathing, we're feeling, and inviting this love to continue to overflow throughout the chest, inviting it to flow up through the throat chakra, filling the mind and the crown, allowing it to flow down our shoulders and our arms and our hands, inviting the love that you are, the innocence that you are. Bring forth a greater sense of hope despite the pain you've experienced. And so we're welcoming this energy of being reborn in the light. And so we're inviting this love, this innocence to overflow, to awaken throughout the solar plexus and the hara and the root. Inviting this energy of renewal, being born again in the light. And so yes, we breathe, we feel, we soften, and we realign ourselves in the truth. And so, there's been a number of questions that have been emailed in to me, so I'd like to get to those. And if you have a question, you're welcome to raise your hand. But the practice I'm going to invite us to play with this holiday season is to be deeply contemplative and reflective of our life, but in the context, in the arena, in the presence of this divine innocence. And so nowhere in here is there judgment. Judgment tends to keep us stuck in a realm of criticism and guilt and shame. And that's not the intention of satsang. The intention is for us to open to the truth of our nature and then to embody this truth. And so as we look at walking forward in the direction of 2026, can we allow our heart to lead us? We allow innocence to lead us. We invite the truth to direct us. As we continue to open to the Christ. Okay, and so a lot of questions. Let me see if I can pull them up here. Here's a question from Charlotte. Hi Craig, how do I step into radical acceptance of life and truly open to my fearless nature/future? I have a lot of trauma and struggle with projecting my past into the future. According to my astrology, I'll continue to have really difficult aspects throughout my life, and I have great difficulty opening up to a life of peace and ease, and to truly believe that life can offer anything different from trauma and adversity. Yeah. Thank you so much, Craig. Yeah. This is a great question. So this is very much in alignment with tonight's satsang. And as I shared, my friend Father John, who has these two brothers, brother priests, and they've been abducted in Nigeria, and it's like here these two guys are in this very hostile, traumatic environment. And they have a choice. Just like you, Charlotte, have a choice. Just like I have a choice. Each of us has a choice. to respond to life with love, or to respond with a repetition of the past. And when we've been traumatized, we tend to respond with defensiveness, hopelessness, sometimes hatred. Many of us, when we've been traumatized, we just respond to life with this energy of being shut down. And when you've been shut down, that energy, it feels numb, it feels dead, it feels like nothing good will ever come to us. And if we want to be awake, we don't live from the past. We don't reference the past. We reference the beauty of our hearts. Whereas with the ego, it doesn't think, it simply reacts. It repeats, it's habitual. The ego says, if I have been hurt, I don't trust. I shut down. I walk around with my head down, looking at the ground. I don't look for new opportunities coming my way. I walk around just bracing, waiting to be hit again. And all of us here on planet Earth, all of us have some level of trauma, some level of pain, some level of conditioning. But the choice to be awake says, I don't reference conditioning. I reference the innocence and the purity of my heart. I reference the truth. I allow the light of God, the light of grace, the light of forgiveness to lead me. The path of the awakened one is a courageous path. A courageous path. And through being courageous, we come to realize this immense strength. We realize this immense strength. And we start to fall into this energy of strength. I wish there was a better word for divine strength. We could call it Buddha nature, we could call it Christ consciousness, but those are far too flowery. But this energy of strength, once you fall into it, a new type of mind begins to descend into your body. A new type of mind. A mind that sees different options, different possibilities. There's this whole story from the Bible with Jesus where, some guys, I don't know if I got the story right, but I'm going to tell it this way. But a bunch of guys rounded up a woman. And, as the story goes, like she had committed adultery, so that's, she had cheated on her husband. And they were going to stone her to death. And they asked Jesus, hey, what should we do here? Jesus is like, well, if you have not sinned, and you can throw the first stone. And see, this is where we see the mind of strength. It brings forth a third option. Should we stone her or should we not stone her, is what the guys were thinking. Just can you imagine being so insane that you're going to go throw rocks at a woman until, her body explodes? It's It's like, what a horror. What a horror humanity has lived through. It's just, what a horror, an absolute horror. And Jesus comes along and he straightens these boys out. He could have easily said, no, 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 don't throw the rocks. And they would have said, screw you, who do you think you are? She's an adulterer. Like, we're going to kill her. This is a crime punishable by death. But when we live in strength, when we live in this power, a different type of mind, a different type of consciousness comes forward. The type of consciousness that can take, someone struggling with devil, someone possessed by the devil. And it wakes them up and they're like, oh, okay. I see we're all hypocrites here. I see. Anyone can say, do this thing or do that thing. But the mind of God is a mind of growth, a mind of evolution, a mind that is greater than the fight or flight response. It's greater than the conditioned response, the conditioned reactivity. And so, Charlotte, your question is, well, how do I step into a life of radical acceptance? I mean, one thing, like if we've been through tremendous pain, like part of the teachings on acceptance is just admitting the obvious. This thing happened. Or this series of events happened. It happened. It's done. It's over. It happened. Part of acceptance is just saying, it did happen. It did happen, but without arguing. So many of us, we live in the past where we are arguing with the past and say, I wish the past did not happen. It shouldn't have happened. That's what the ego says. It should not have happened. This should not have happened. This is not fair. That's what the ego says. Acceptance says, this happened. And acceptance, if it's going to be a deeper acceptance than just a mental acceptance, we can acknowledge this thing happened and it hurt. If we go into whether it should or should not have happened, we'll be in our mind. It will just be spinning in a story and we won't actually come into acceptance. Part of being able to swallow this bag of rocks, that might be our life. If I have a bag of rocks, I mean all the trauma and the painful things that have happened to you. Is we have to validate it and acknowledge this hurt. Period. This thing happened and it hurt. Period. I like to put the period at the end of the sentence to put a boundary around our mind from going into judgment, guilt, or shame. This is a psychological trick here of this thing happened and it hurt. Period. We're just validating that it hurt. Now the acceptance has moved deeper into the realm of the heart. Now it's moved deeper because we are validating our pain. And if we don't do this, if we don't validate our pain, most likely we will be spiritually bypassing in the following steps. So step 1, with acceptance, we admit this thing happened, period. It really hurt, period. We might say it hurt so bad, period. And we might need to grieve and cry for 6 months or 4 years, truly grieving. Without, I wish it didn't happen or it shouldn't have happened. Just acknowledge, this hurt so bad. And we're just feeling the pain of it, validating it. After we've done that, you'll notice a new mind coming online. A mind which sees the experience from a different perspective. The perspective of compassion. I can remember the first time this happened for me in a very direct way. And I was in some therapeutic relationship, and I was speaking and sharing about how angry, how hurt I was in relationship to my father. And the therapist asked me, she said, well, go inside, and I want you to just kind of see and hold your inner child and see that this man who was your father wasn't able to parent you. And as soon as I saw my inner child, I saw my father as a little boy. And I was like, oh, I'm here to see my inner child. And I saw my inner child very briefly. And then I saw his inner child. I saw him as a boy, him as an orphan. And all of a sudden, my mind, my heart exploded open. There was a sense of, oh, it's not his fault. He was abused. He was abandoned. He didn't know how to parent me. Any ideas of guilt or angst or this shouldn't have happened just dissolved and continued to dissolve as I continued to work with this wound. I saw, oh, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. He didn't know how to parent. And so with acceptance, the first step is acknowledging it happened. The second step is validating your pain. You cannot skip that step. If you skip that step, you will not progress. We validate our pain. This hurts so bad. As we're getting near the end of validating our pain, our heart begins to wake up. In this realm of compassion, we see, oh, they are hurting. They're hurting too. And we respond with love to both. To both. To the victim and the offender. And as we do so, we come into Christ consciousness. We come into Buddha nature. But in the beginning, before we've accepted, we're not thinking, I need to send love to the offender. We're not thinking that at all. We're thinking they need to be in jail. They're wrong. They're bad. This shouldn't have happened. The problem with acceptance is the truth. It happened. It did happen. It happened. It happened. It happened. It's done. It happened. It happened. And so, Charlotte, I hope there's something helpful there. Now, there's a follow-up question from someone else. It's not really a follow-up question, but it's a question that's in alignment with this that says, like someone wrote me this long email. It's basically is, hey, Craig, I'm in a difficult situation. I've got some friends who have moved in with me. And, I wanted to help them out. I wanted to help them. But they moved in with me, and now they're just hanging out on my couch, and they're just, smoking and not going to work. They don't have jobs. They don't have any money. They don't have anything to contribute. And what do I do? How do I get them out of here? Am I supposed to just keep continuing to let them stay? Or when is it time to be kind and compassionate? When is it time to respond with tough love? And I think, whoever wrote this question, I mean, come on, the answer. It's tough love. It's tough love. I can remember when I was young, I lived in this hippie house, and you know, we would oscillate between having 10 people in the house to upwards to 17, maybe even 20 people living in the house. And for some reason, because I was the only responsible one of all my delinquent friends, I was the guy in charge. So I would collect rent, I would pay the rent. I paid all the bills, like everything was in my name, the leases and everything. And anyway, so occasionally someone would come and they would, we'd have a party and someone would stay over. And, as hippies have lots of parties and lots of potlucks and this and that. And, I had, sometimes people would come and they would stay for too long without paying any rent, without contributing. And, I can remember, having to, look at just a young hippie fella and say, hey, it's time for you to, move on out, like head on down the line. Like the person, they didn't even formally move in. They just showed up and stayed is what they did. And it's like, hey, like now's the time to get out of here. And I can remember there's one fella, this was like my first time dealing with a legitimate narcissist. And he said, no. And I was like, what do you mean no? Like, this is my house. Like, I'm telling you to leave. Get out of here. And he was like, no, I'm not going to. And it was very confusing to me, very shocking. And, we all went outside, and we were all skateboarders at the time. So we always had our skateboards just like on our body, on our person. And so, skateboard can be a deadly weapon. And we had our skateboards just down on the ground. And there's this thing you can do with a skateboard. You kind of snap it up and you just grab the trucks with your hand. And so he snapped his board up. And I noticed his grip and his face, and he had like that red vein popping out of the forehead. I'm always watching for that red vein, and he was like ready to slug me, or just, pummel me with his skateboard, which, you get hit with a skateboard. That could kill you, certainly knock you out, can certainly crack your skull. So anyways, like he grabbed his skateboard and he was ready to hit me. And I was like, wow, this is not going how I thought it was going to go. I thought, hey man, you got to go. And he'd be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I know I stayed too long. That's what I was expecting. He didn't give me that. So I snapped my board up and grabbed it. And I was like, I don't want to hit this man. And I certainly hope he doesn't hit me. Now, luckily for me, a couple of my friends and roommates at the house kind of grabbed him and said, hey man, like, let's just get out of here. Let's go to the skate park and let's just go blow off some steam. And it was beautiful because in a sense they saved me from a real altercation. But there's times in life when we need to stand up, when we need to speak the truth, and when we need to tell someone like, hey, there's a boundary here, or this is my house. I need you to leave, or you can't talk to me this way. And there's times we need to speak up. There's times we need to stand in the truth. And if you're asking the question, it's probably that time. And there's a thing with some people, if you open your house to certain people, they're not going to leave until you bring the police. That's a worst case scenario, of course, but there's all levels to this, where people are like, hey, just give me one more day, or just give me another week. I always had people tell me, oh, Craig, just let me stay a little bit longer till I just can get a job and get on my feet. And I'm just like, hey man, like, that's what you said to me 3 months ago. And you haven't got a job. There's plenty of jobs out there. You chose to sit on the couch and puff on the chronic all day. Like, you gotta go. You've had a lot of opportunities. And sometimes as spiritual beings, you'll see that people prey on you. or we are just too soft inside. We say, I can't kick someone out at Christmas. It's like, okay, don't kick them out at Christmas. But boy, that new year, the first of the year, they better be gone. The day after Christmas or whatever it is. And again, I hope it doesn't sound harsh. I want it to be, if it's the truth, it's the truth. And sometimes on the spiritual path, people take advantage of us. Sometimes we enable others through our kindness, through our compassion. Sometimes there's whole groups of people that prey upon good-natured individuals, kind and trusting individuals. There's people who've learned to survive through playing these games. And at some point, we need to say no. Enough's enough. Like, I'm working, you can work too. I mean, everyone. I had someone in the song who tell me they couldn't work. And it's like, man, I've traveled all over the world. All over the world. You go to India, and you'll see a woman, who's like missing a leg, has some kind of like old, prosthetic leg, and she has a baby on her back, and she's out working the fields all day. People in the West are like, I'm traumatized, I can't work. It's like, yeah, I got it. You have anxiety, okay. There's people who are missing an arm and missing an eye, and they're working in a mine somewhere. So that we can get the new iPhone 17. And we can, tweet to people like, I can't work because I'm traumatized. And again, I'm not wanting to be harsh tonight, but it's important for us to live in reality. And part of living in reality is recognizing your strength, your power. There's something here much greater than being a victim. And sometimes when we have a really good and gentle and kind-natured heart, God will send us people. Literally, life will send us people to take advantage of us. And it's not because God is a cruel God, but God is doing this to wake up our strength, to wake up our power, to wake up this different aspect of consciousness that isn't just all rainbows and unicorns. And I know none of us, want to respond to life with tough love. None of us want to say no to life. But if we live in a world where we're not allowed to say no, we will be preyed upon constantly. If we're not allowed to close our door, we'll be taken advantage of. And so sometimes the truth is a big yes, and sometimes the truth is a big no. Sometimes it's a namaste. I'm going to get out of here. But your job is to discern what the truth is. What the truth is. And in this world, in this matrix, because that's what this world really is, it's a matrix of growth, a world of growth. And most of us don't choose to grow. We have to be forced to grow. And when we're forced to grow, we look at God and we say, this isn't fair. I don't like you. But when we choose to open to the love of the divine, we say, God, I love you so much. I love you so much. I'm so happy to be alive. As we actively choose love, as we choose peace, as we choose compassion, and we smile. But when things are difficult, our very fickle ego comes in and says, this isn't fair. Whereas the divine mind says, this is a world of growth. It's not a world of fairness. That's not what it is. And so when we look at God's plan for your life, what's the plan? For you to grow. For you to grow in alignment with your highest nature. And sometimes God has to bring forth great difficulty to bring out our highest nature. Those two priests, who are abducted in Nigeria, God is giving them an opportunity to bring out their highest nature. God is giving the kidnappers also an opportunity for their heart to open, for them to question, is this the right way to live? Kidnapping priests, telling their family that we're going to cut off their heads. It's you have to be possessed by the devil to be thinking that way. If there's any heart in the kidnappers, they'll realize, oh, this is not the way. It's not the truth. But for us here, we're not dealing with these things. Thank God. For many of us, it's the question of, am I going to forgive my mother, my father, and go home and have Christmas dinner and do my best to be kind and polite and be compassionate? Or am I going to go home and say, you ruined my life. You ruined my life, Mom. Mom, you ruined my life. And we could do that. We could. But on the path of awakening, we are continually asked to take the higher road. Now, the higher road might not be some grand outward gesture of, I forgive you all. It might start with, I forgive me. And I forgive the addict inside, the addicted one. And I see that I am suffering. I see that I am hurting. I see that I have issues with anger. And so I'm going to get some help. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to spend some time with my shadow and truly get to know it, so it doesn't just come out at family gatherings all of a sudden, unexpectedly. Just this screaming at the table. I've been at, I was at a Thanksgiving dinner once, and these two sisters just started screaming at each other, going at each other. One of them grabbed a knife. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? What is going on? Guys, ladies, it's Thanksgiving. What the hell's going on here? And the parents were just frozen, they were supposed to be the adults in the room. I was a young adult, I was like, what the heck? Where am I at? I don't want to be here. And so what did I spend Thanksgiving doing? Consoling and listening and validating one of the sisters for hours and hours and hours. And then over the following months, inviting her, into a perspective of seeing what her sister was angry about. Seeing the pain in her sister's eyes, in her heart, in her experience, coming to a greater sense of understanding of the quote-unquote enemy, which was her sister. It's boy, it's a lot of work. But this is good work. And when we choose the path of awakening, we're choosing to step out of tribal consciousness. We choose to step out of me consciousness. What do I want? What do I desire? We're inviting something much greater to move through us, to live through us, to speak through us. And again, sometimes the much greater thing is like, hey, y'all have stayed here at my house for many months for free. You've ate up all my food. I need you to get out of here. I need you to go get a job. I need you to test your luck somewhere else. But you can't stay because I'm enabling you. You can't stay because I'm tired of y'all here. And there's been many times on my path when my teacher would give me a swift kick in the rear end. And I was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. But I immediately went into, I know he's right, though. I know he's right. I know he's right. I have to make some changes here. And there's a time and a place for being sweet and gentle. And there's a time and a place, like what Hilda used to say, there's a time and a place to give someone a kick in the shin. You ever been kicked in the shin? It hurts. It'll make you cry. The pain will radiate all the way up into your loins, into your belly. It's a good swift kick in the shins. Like, it'll make you cry. It'll make you think. It'll make you reflect. And there's a time and a place for that. And so, one more question here. Hi, Craig. The question I wanted to bring was, what does victory feel like to you? In relationship to true confidence, from a well-balanced game, like what is true confidence like? What does victory feel like? You know, she went on to say, you know, she used this metaphor, but like a lot of people who have power and who have confidence, they use it as a way like the owners of Walmart. I love the owners of Walmart because they're just mass manipulators. They're one of the great funders, by the way, behind the No Kings rally, which, I think was hilarious. I'm not going to get into that. Not going to get into it. But just when billionaires are telling us who to hate, I'd be suspicious. Or you see a company like Walmart, and basically they destroyed much of the middle class throughout the United States. They shut down so many small businesses. They pay people a wage that they can't live on. Most Walmart employees, have to have health insurance through the state government, and so ends up being it's like these big corporations pay people so little, and then all of us together, our taxes go to pay people's health insurance who work at Walmart. It's just because Walmart won't pay for it. They don't pay people enough. And so you see people abuse power. You take a family like the Waltons. They did this funny thing in Durango, as they wanted to make a Walmart here in Durango, and we all protested, said, no, we don't want you here, no kings. We didn't say no kings, but we said, no, we don't want you here, because we know it'll destroy, like so many small businesses on Main Street. But, Sam Walton, he did a beautiful thing. He bought a piece of property and said, hey, I'm a local. As soon as he had Walmart built, he sold that property and moved on down the line. He does this in all these towns. So he'll buy a piece of property and say, I'm a local, And it's a funny thing. And actually, a buddy of mine built his house, one of his houses, because I'm sure he's got like 30. And I'm not even sure if he's still alive anymore. But anyways. So the point being here is like, what does victory look like? Victory in the modern age In the ego age, it looks like I am rich, I'm successful, I'm a billionaire, and I have FU money. I can just do whatever I want. That's what victory looks like when we bow before false gods. What does victory look like on the spiritual path? I'm going to point, it's the Christmas season, I'm going to point to Jesus. What does it look like? Everlasting life, immense love, indestructibility, being unmoved by the chaos of this world. The chaos of this world. What does true confidence look like? Sometimes it looks like someone spitting in your face and you responding with silence. You're responding with compassion. You're responding with kindness. When they beg for your forgiveness 15 years later. True confidence and victory is you living in this absolute love. A love with supreme resilience. When you have total faith in God. Total faith in yourself. Despite the outer world. What does true victory and confidence look like? It looks like you sharing your gift. And being honored and being respected. And sharing your gift when you're not honored and not respected. I have many experiences of sharing this gift and not being honored. People laughing at me, people calling me a fool, people not listening, people tuning out. People saying, oh, I got a better idea. I have a better idea. And so, what does victory feel like to you? It feels like being plugged into God, being plugged into grace, being plugged into the Divine Mother. And knowing and trusting that God is here on your best day and your worst day and every day in between. What does victory feel like to you? It feels like sitting in silence and watching my skin crawl, my heart grieve, terror arise throughout my consciousness, and sitting there for 5 years and letting it burn up in the light. I know all of us want true victory and confidence to look like, oh, I get to walk around in life. And I like what Ken Wilber said, like, you feel more, but it bothers you less, and so like you're feeling everything and connected and tuned and oneness with everything, but nothing bothers you. Like, yeah, that sounds great. And again, like the new tagline I'm playing with here in the song is real spirituality for real people. I don't like to bullshit people. I like to tell people the truth. This is a world of growth. This is a world of challenge. This is a world where there's so many obstacles. So many opportunities to get in trouble and to get into all kinds of chaotic experiences. I mean, we could, just with a couple clicks, With a couple clicks right now, the internet, we could step into a hell realm that's sold as desire, that's sold as happiness and joy, that's sold as, something new and shiny, will turn out to be quite dark. Like, we live in a world where there's more slaves now than there have ever been on planet Earth. More slaves now than there have ever been on planet Earth. It's a crazy world. And the question is, will you respond to this chaos, to this insanity, from a place of truth, from a place of love, from a place of peace and nobility? Or are we going to contribute or add to or be confused by the chaos that's all around us? And I'll say this, that all of us here, each and every one of us, are far too along, far too mature to continue to choose to be lost and confused. Now I want you to hear that I frame that as a choice. Confusion is a choice. All of us here know what the truth is. We're not confused. We allow our egos to be confused. If we just go back to this question around, like, what do I do? I've got these people living in my house. It's time for them to leave. You know what to do. But instead of facing the truth, the ego will negotiate. Well, I don't want to come off as mean. I don't want to be harsh. I can't kick them out. They're my friends. Maybe I'll just let them stay a little bit longer. And we know that that's not the truth. And so many of us, we see the confusion and we negotiate our way into confusion. We negotiate our way into samsara, or we stay on the wheel of samsara to say, just like maybe later, maybe later, I'll make the choice of truth. But this holy season, this Christmas is a holy season. Many of us have forgotten that. This holy season, I invite you to give yourself the gift of truth, the gift of innocence, the gift of love, the gift of strength, the gift of compassion. And so, let us all shut down our eyes. And again, feeling this warmth, this innocence, the purity of our heart. And together, let us smile at the beauty that you are, the innocence that you are, the supreme radiance that you are. Let us call forth the grace of God to awaken more fully throughout every cell of our being, calling upon the Christ to awaken the head, the heart, the gut, from above the head to below the feet. Let us welcome the realization of the Christ, the realization of immense love. immense truth. And I invite you to notice how big your consciousness is right now. You're here at the end of Satsang. Our consciousness is expanding out into infinity. The heart is this blazing fire of innocence and purity. The mind is clear and empty. And so may we all be conduits of this divine grace. And so let us bring our palms to our heart. May all beings be blessed with the highest love. May the wars and violence of planet Earth end. God, may you come into the hearts, the minds of all of the world's governance, of the rulers, the leaders, the judges, the police, the soldiers. May this world wake up. May our world wake up to a greater light, a greater truth. May humanity welcome the new age. Welcome the great awakening. May the truth prevail. May the captives be set free. May all those enslaved go home and live in the truth, live in love. And may all the troublemakers, may their hearts break open and be flooded with Christ. Be flooded with the Christ. And so, may your suffering end. So much love to each of you. We'll see y'all next time. Much love. Happy holidays, everyone. Bye for now.